right, we're going to get started. Welcome to How to Check Your Car or Truck. We're going to go over the basic things about cars. The first thing that comes to mind about cars is that tires are the #1 cause of breakdown. And the way that you can check tire is, you see this little cap right here? This is called a valve stem, and it's what lets air in and out of the tire. If you look closely inside of it, there's a two-way valve that keeps air from going out but lets air in. And one of the ways that you can check it is by one of these handy tire gauges, and just put it on the end of the valve stem cap, and it'll push out like that. It shows it's got 30 pounds of air in it, which is okay. You want between 30 and 35 pounds of air in it. My tires actually have nitrogen in them, and one of the reasons that people put nitrogen in tires is because it doesn't expand and contract as much as regular compressed air. So what you have is a more consistent tire pressure. When you drive your tires get hot and the air expands and causes you to have higher tire pressure. And they also cool down, and it doesn't do that as much with nitrogen. One of the things that's different probably about your car compared to mine is this valve stem. Your valve stem has probably got a nut on it and is metal, and that means it has a tire pressure monitoring system in it, which there's a computer inside of your car that monitors the tire pressure and will turn the tire pressure light on if your tire gets below, I think, 25% of manufacturer's specifications. So that's, if your tire pressure light comes on, chances are one of your tires is a little bit low. The second most common cause of car breakdown is a dead battery. And one of the ways that you can check a battery is, first, get you a little trusty digital volt ohm meter, which is what this is right here, and put the black lead on the negative and the red lead on the positive. Let's see how I can do this. And you see it's registering 12.93 volts. Now, one of the things you also need to do is you need to crank the car to see if the alternator is working. And if the alternator is working, it should register about 13.5 to 14 volts. And you see it's sorry, my Bluetooth connected to my phone, and it thought I was driving, and it turned it off. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is the distributor. This is what's called a distributor. As you can see, there are spark plug wires coming off of it. The distributor is what controls the electronic timing of the engine. In an internal combustion engine, there are 4 different phases of an internal combustion engine. There's a compression stroke, there is a power stroke, there's an intake stroke, and there's an exhaust stroke. And in the intake stroke, the piston goes down and pulls air and fuel into the combustion chamber. The next stroke is the compression stroke, in which that air and fuel is compressed. The next stroke is the power stroke, in which that air and fuel is ignited and pushes the piston down, which is what creates the power for the vehicle. And the final stroke is the exhaust stroke, in which the piston comes back up and pushes the spent fuel, i.e. exhaust gases, out through the exhaust system. What ignites the air fuel mixture is a spark plug, and these spark plugs have to be timed to fire at the right moment. So each one of these spark plugs fires at a different moment. Each one of these spark plugs fires at a different moment, at the optimum timing for the combustibility of the fuel. The distributor itself is driven by a gear on the camshaft, and which is connected to the crankshaft. The crankshaft is what holds the pistons, and the camshaft is what opens and closes the valves, allowing the air-fuel mixture into the combustion chamber and allowing for the air-fuel mixture to escape and allow for the exhaust gas to escape. The crankshaft is also mechanically timed with the camshaft, and the camshaft drives the distributor, which does the electronic timing for the spark plug. So there's two types of timing on an internal combustion engine. There's a mechanical timing between the crankshaft and the camshaft, and there's an electronic timing between the distributor and the spark plugs. And all of these things have to be perfectly in time in order for a vehicle to run correctly. I think that's about it. I was interested if anybody has any questions or comments, please post them. We're going to post this video on our website. And this is the basic way that you check your car. Keep in mind the two most important things are tires and your electrical system, the battery, because those are the two things that cause most of the roadside breakdowns. Other things that cause roadside breakdowns are broken timing chains or timing belts. But generally, if it's broken down on the side of the road, it's got a battery, alternator, or tire problem. Oh, one last thing. The last thing I want to talk about is brakes. This little contraption here is called a master cylinder, and it's what generates the hydraulic pressure that control your brakes. When you press the brake pedal, it passes through this booster, which uses vacuum which uses vacuum from the engine to boost the master cylinder power, and then that creates a hydraulic pressure. The pedal creates hydraulic pressure, which comes out of these lines here and these lines here. This line here, I believe, goes to the, I believe this, yeah. I believe this line here goes to the front, to the rear, and this one goes to the front. And you actually need more power in the front than you need in the rear, because the front does 80% of all the braking, whereas the rear only does 20%. What this does is it goes to what's called a brake caliper, and that caliper squeezes a brake pad around a metal rotor, creating heat, and that heat stops the vehicle. And those are your basic systems on an engine. Oh, one more thing. The last thing that I need to talk about is checking your automatic transmission fluid. You really should do this when the vehicle is on, but I'm not gonna do it while the vehicle is on because it'll connect to my Bluetooth. But as you can see, that red fluid on the dipstick shows that the transmission is full of transmission fluid. And a lot of modern vehicles do not actually have transmission dipsticks. The transmission fluid is checked by a bolt in the side of the transmission. And that's it. Power steering. Oh, power steering. And power steering fluid is checked right here. It's also a hydraulic system. The brakes, the transmission, and the power steering are hydraulic system. And as you can see, this power steering system is a little bit low on fluid. So all of these are hydraulic systems. You have hydraulic systems, electrical systems, internal combustion systems, electronic systems. This is a electronic fuel injected vehicle. Electronic fuel injection manages the air-fuel mixture in order to get an optimum air-fuel mixture and optimum gas mileage. It was invented it wasn't invented, but it was put into use in a more widespread way when emission standards started to be higher. So they saw that carburetors could meet the emission standards very well, or it was very difficult to get them to meet emission standards, so they decided to develop a more exact way to meet emission standards, and that was when electronic fuel injection came into play. It became really common in the 90s. They invented electronic fuel injection, I think, in the 60s or 70s, but it started to pick up speed in the 80s, and it became almost universal in the 90s. And you can't buy a carbureted car nowadays. Every single car is fuel injected. And all of these new cars are highly computer controlled. They have between 50 and 75 computers within them controlling everything from the headlights to the key system to the engine to the transmission. Every single thing has a computer about it, and that's a big thing called to work on for the home mechanic nowadays. But I think there are ways to start figuring out these systems and start sharing that information with people as much as possible. So I want to thank y'all for coming to How to Check Your Car. Very basic overview of the systems within a vehicle. We talked about power steering, brakes, automatic transmissions, internal combustion engines,